Well, today we have a very exciting episode. We have Vincenzo Fasulo. Welcome to the show, man. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, James. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So Vincenzo is currently the head of talent over at SafeBreach, which is a cybersecurity startup. It's a startup, right? Or
Yes, you could say we're still a startup. Yeah, we are 10 years young, 11
okay.
years young actually, but yeah, we like to think that we are still like a scrappy startup. Yes.
Yeah. I guess it's just like I immediately assume like a tech company, like SMBs, like it's startup. It doesn't. I guess you're right. I don't even check like how many years they've been in business. I'm just sort of like, yeah, it's a startup.
Right. Yeah, but that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes we still even use the term startup, so that's cool.
Right. Well, good stuff. So where are you from?
I'm from Benevento, which will be unknown to almost everybody. It's a small town in Italy, about an hour away from Naples, and 2 hours from Rome. So right in the heart of it.
Well, is it like a smaller town or?
It's a smaller town, yes. It's about 50,000 people. So like not like a huge city, not like a remote village either. So it's kind of like in between.
Yeah. Um, what's it like there culturally, like compared to maybe the bigger cities in Italy?
Well, I always like to brag about that Benevento is actually 300 years older than Rome, which almost nobody knows outside of really my town. But we always like to brag about it because when people think of Italy, they think, oh, Rome is definitely the oldest city to ever exist. And it's actually not. I don't know if Benevento is the oldest town in Italy all around, but it's older than Rome. So that's one thing that I keep repeating because I like to brag. But the culture is, as you can imagine, from a traditional town. It's what you would expect from a small Italian town. It's very easygoing, slow pace, kind of like life. So definitely the opposite of New Jersey, where I live today.
Yeah, what a cultural difference. I'm excited to talk about what that was like when we fast forward to today. But well, that's awesome. I'm really excited to learn more about that. So growing up as a kid, you let me know that you're pretty passionate about, you said two things, right? Soccer and music, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, correct. Yeah.
nice.
I think soccer was kind of like my choice to get into because, as an Italian, if you're surrounded by soccer, either on TV or kids play in the street, and that's just like the way you grow up and you make friends, that's the like the starting point of your just being a happy kid. And the second one, which is music, as you mentioned, I was actually kind of forced into back when I was 6 years old. My grandmother forced me into taking piano lessons, and I hated it at the beginning. I thought it was so boring, a lot of theory, and just too much to handle for a 6 year old kid, right? But I think to this day, I couldn't be more thankful to my grandmother for taking me to that first piano lesson because I've learned so much from music, not just about the music itself, but about life. It's cheesy to say, but it got me through some hard moments in life, and it keeps shaping who I am. I'm still playing it. I'm in a band right now. So I think you could say that's like one of the great things that happened to my life.
It's interesting you say that, like in terms of music, getting you through hard times. When I was growing up as a kid, I actually I played classical guitar, and it happened from actually when I went to a trip to Spain when I was a kid, and I was in Sevilla, and they had
Wow.
all the flamenco dancers and guitars, and I was an 8-year-old boy. And I just saw that guitarist on stage with all the pretty women, and I was like, yes, whatever is happening up there, like that is that's it. Those are goals. Like, I don't even realize my brain didn't even realize what was happening. I was just like, that looks awesome. Like that guy has got it all figured out. And yeah, so I started playing classical guitar, and then as I get older, like I stopped playing. Like I just got away from it. And when COVID happened, and just all the challenges that happened with that,
Mhm.
I started playing a lot. And it was like this amazing distraction, but also like just ignites your brain.
Yeah.
And it's like really, it's like positive, it's like it's growth, right? It's not just a distraction that's unhealthy or kind of neutral. It's like actually really good for your brain as well. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I could. I'm just saying, like I can relate to that. It was kind of there for me when I needed it, you know?
Yeah, I think maybe the only good thing that happened because of COVID is kind of like, the revival of some of our childhood memories and passions. So
Yeah.
by the way, great to hear that, I would love to hear you play the guitar. Maybe instead of the jingle for the podcast, you can have a solo flamenco on your guitar.
Right. Yeah. 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 For sure. I don't know about all that, but yeah, man. Were you playing a lot during like COVID? Was that like one of your
Yeah, more than like playing in a band, because really there
right?
was no way that you could meet people. I was kind of like playing by myself, mostly the piano. I actually know how to play the drums too, and my band today, I'm the drummer.
Oh, cool.
But being the piano being my kind of like first and main instrument kind of helped me because it's something that you enjoy even playing by yourself, and
Yeah.
that playing piano daily kind of like was one of the things that got me through the pandemic, I would
Yeah.
say. And I even started to like even write some music of my own. I'm not gonna show you any of it because it's probably terrible, but it was definitely lovely to do that.
That's awesome. I think piano is like the coolest instrument, man. Like I at this point in my life, I just don't have the bandwidth. I have this kind of dream of like selling my businesses and then being able to like focus on music again, like getting really good at the guitar. Uh,
Yeah,
but the reality is I'd probably go stir crazy and start another company. But there's a big part of me that does want to do that. Um, but I just think if I could go back, I can't do it now. I'm not going to rather, but like if I go back, I think piano is just like it's the most beautiful instrument. Like when I'm listening to classical music, it's usually piano, or even more than guitar, I would say.
yeah, yeah. It's great, and I can relate to what you said. You're a great entrepreneur, but you have to constantly urge the fight between I want to be an entrepreneur and be successful, and but I also want to be good at arts and craft and playing the piano,
Yes,
playing the guitar. So that's becoming, I think more and more challenging to live with, like both urges at the same time.
it's really hard. It's like, yeah, because I feel like arts and music is also like it's like you, it's important to me. Maybe more for you, it's just actually because you follow through and do more of it today than I do. But it always seems like the corporate ambitious side, like it just comes, maybe it's just like what we have to do as adults, right? Like we have to go out and we have to, make money and do these things and take care of our family. But yeah, it's like this, it's hard to maintain both, like to
Yeah,
keep that creative artistic side and to be like super dialed into your career, like particularly for what we do and recruiting with all
yeah.
the changes to recruiting tech and like everything that's going as fast as it is, it's challenging to find that balance for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, everything that's happening, especially in recruiting, I can think of the first 4 years of my career, everything was still advancing in terms of technology, but it was kind of like, a good pace, right? And then in
Yeah.
the last year or two, we're probably even struggling even to take a breath and how much everything's changing.
Yeah, it's wild. It's a lot to keep up with. I don't think anyone's doing it perfectly. Like it's just we're all kind of like it's everybody feels like behind because it's like 2 weeks later you're just like, oh wait, now there's a totally different way to do something, right?
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
well, so anyways, like growing up as a kid, you were like it sounds like you were always gravitating toward the arts, really into music, and then you also fell in love with foreign languages, right? Like middle school, high school. You speak
Yeah.
several foreign languages, right? Or at least you studied them. I
So
don't know if you still do.
so today I speak, of course, Italian and English. I like to think that I speak pretty fluent English. But when I was in middle school and even high school, rather, I probably knew four languages, pretty fluently. Like some better than others, right? But I could speak Italian, English, French, and German,
Mhm.
and at the same time it was kind of like funny because I went to so in Italy the way it works, you can pick your high school based on kind of like the profession you like to pursue, which
Students
is
get to decide.
Students get to decide. Yeah, that's
Wow.
which is an anomaly, right, compared to the US, right? I think high schools are pretty much the same here, and in college you decide your career. I think that happens a little earlier in Italy, and I decided to go to what is called like a modern language school, which is kind of like heavily focused on kind of like forming you into opening up your horizons on speaking more languages. And I think
Hmm.
that's probably one of the primary reasons that I was able to move to a whole different country and speak the language and kind of like integrating myself into the culture. But what was funny of being in high school, I had to so like English and French were like the must, like you must learn those. And then the third one, you could pick between German and Spanish. And I was like, okay, what's the hardest one of the two? I'm always being attracted by the hardest things and the most challenging stuff to learn. So I picked German, and that
Good one.
was my favorite subject in high school. I excelled at it. Another thing that I like to brag about. But I sadly forgot all of it
Ah,
pretty.
it happens. I'm sure it'd come back to you really fast. I'm always super impressed by people who are really good at languages. It was never my strength to learn several languages. My mom's super good at it. My dad is not. I think I got his brain.
I
But
I think it's because English is kind of like the international standard, and so there's no incentive for an English-speaking country to,
yeah,
to prompt you to learn more languages, right?
it's that, and it's also when you travel. I was building a subsidiary, a company in Romania many, many years ago, and it's probably about a decade ago. And I was learning Romanian, but like as soon as I opened my mouth, people were just like, "Stop!" Like, just we'll speak English because everybody always wanted to like to practice their English too, and they didn't want to hear me stumbling around the language too much. But no, I don't know. I mean, like for instance, my stepbrother is brilliant when it comes to languages. He studied Russian and Arabic at UVA, and
Wow.
he read a book and learned French. Like just like that, like how his brain just works that way. And I do think you're right. Like English, it is like the fortunately for somebody who's not strong at learning several languages. Like I got the one that's probably used the most. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I find it super impressive when people can just be like fluent in multiple
Yeah.
languages. Like not yeah.
There's actually a fifth language I almost learned. I was for a study abroad program in Lithuania for
Oh,
about
nice.
7 months. And one of the classes was about learning the basics of Lithuanian, which is a very, very interesting language. It's a mix of Russian and German in, like in some weird way. And
That
it,
sounds complicated.
it was very complicated. All I learned was say yes or no at the supermarket
That's
or
it. You
thank
just
you. Yeah.
you were
Yep.
just like, I'm not doing this. Like
No,
this
I'm
is
not.
not. Yeah, yeah, that sounds brutal. Did you spend any time in Germany?
I actually not a long time, but in high school we took a 1 week trip to Berlin. So
Berlin.
that's yes, that's about my only experience in Germany, which I loved, by the way. Very fascinating, but I didn't go back ever since.
I went to Berlin for a handful of days. It's there's a lot of places I've been for an extended period of time, which is really my preference. I didn't get to do that in Berlin. It was interesting. Culturally, it was interesting. I don't know. I'd have to think about it a little bit to figure out how exactly to explain it. But yeah, it's a fascinating country. I also had a chance to go to Munich. But
Nice.
again, I didn't spend a whole lot of time in Germany. But
Yeah, I think interesting is the right word for it.
there's a lot to unpack there. But
Yeah, there's a
yeah.
lot to unpack. I don't think we have the time to do that today. But yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
it's definitely a different vibe than anywhere else I've been in Europe.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good. Not that I know that for experience, but it's good if you like, raves and parties. But
Yeah,
Berlin is the place to be for that.
apparently, yeah, yeah, yeah. It can be a kind of a pretty wild city, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And travel was a big part, even as you got into college, a big part of your life. Like, what are some of your favorite places that you've been to?
Oof, that's a good question. I've been to a lot of places. I was fortunate enough. I mentioned, being in Germany as part of a high school trip and doing a study abroad program in Lithuania, and also traveling in, the UK, Wales, France. So pretty much in a lot of countries within Europe. When I was still living in Italy, I think one of my favorite places is actually definitely, Berlin. I like the vibe that we just talked about, and I didn't expect to like Lithuania as much as I did. I think that was also very fascinating for kind of like a country that was still decades after the Soviet Union disappeared. It was still trying to like become have an identity, like kind of like rebuild itself into having like abandoning those roots and being like a new country. So I was the architecture was definitely reminiscent of like their earlier past, but I think the
My
people
God,
that
it
I
was like
met.
communist bloc
Yeah,
architecture.
yeah, the architecture was definitely reminiscent of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So like I spent off and on over like a 3 year period, a year and a half in Romania. I was building
Hmm.
out my RPO and a better recruiting firm, Secure Vision, had an office in Romania. This was before Deal and Remote and all these companies that you could just like have an entity essentially through them,
Yeah.
and they're like an international PEO. So I had like a business, like an actual business in the country. And in Bucharest, like it's sort of like what you were saying, you get a lot of like the architecture from that's been around since the communist days. But it's interesting, you go out to the cities, like other cities in the country, and they're just like gorgeous.
Yeah.
The architecture is just absolutely beautiful. But it's
Yeah.
always interesting to see the roots, right? Like where you see like a lot of these countries are still going through that kind of transition. I think they've made a lot of progress over the past decade.
Yeah,
But
there's so many countries in my bucket list, but I even haven't seen all of Italy, and I was
yeah,
born and I was raised there, and there's still a lot of stuff that I haven't seen. I haven't been to Venice. Can you believe that in my entire life?
how the hell I've been to Venice, man? How have you not been to Venice?
I don't know. It could be the fact that Benevento, the city where I was born and lived my almost my entire life, is like a 12-hour drive to Venice.
Oh
So
wow.
it just have kind of never happened, never had a chance to go that far, I
This is
guess.
gonna sound sort of stupid, but I didn't know you would have a 12-hour drive within Italy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to believe,
Yeah.
but I think from top to bottom, you could be in a car for like 16, 17 hours easily.
Really?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I gotta check that out. Wow, I didn't realize that. That's that's good to know. Yeah, it's well maybe you also didn't go because I'm sure it's like super touristy, right? Like it's just constantly packed with like foreigners, which is I don't know, probably at times
Yeah.
get a little bit old, right? Living in a country.
Yeah, and what I'm about to say is probably going to upset some people that have loved Venice, but I've never seen like all the charm that, it gets, it draws a lot of people to visit. I'm always been more drawn to other cities in Italy, like Florence or Rome, or even like, like smaller realities like the Amalfi Coast or Cinque Terre, like more the natural places.
Yeah.
I just never I haven't been fascinated by Venice, but I will go there one day. Hopefully before it sinks because
Right.
of
Yeah,
climate change.
right, right. Yeah, Florence is really cool. It's also, I guess, like everywhere in Italy is like super touristy at this point. Rome is really cool. Like, despite there being a lot of tourism, it still has this like very original, kind of unique feel culturally.
Yeah,
So I've been there a handful of times and I've always enjoyed it. And there's still always ways to get off like the beaten path as a tourist and like have a more local experience.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It's true. And when I travel to Italy now, it's most of the time it's with my wife, and so I get to be her guide, and I am, kind of like a tourist in my own like birth country. And as a proof that I haven't still seen all of Italy, in a week's time, we're going to travel to the Dolomites in the very north of Italy, like almost bordering Austria, which I've also never been to. I'm looking forward to it because it's a much less touristy place, and it's more into nature, which I love. We love hiking. And we're also gonna take a trip down to Ischia, which is an island off the coast of Naples, which I've also never been to. I think the more I would say I grow or I age rather, the more I'm starting to appreciate, less crowds and more natural places. I can
Yeah.
tell you my favorite places in the United States that I've been to are Montana, especially Glacier National Park. I've been there last year and it was absolutely unreal. And also San Diego. You can't beat San Diego in the US. It's just the best to
San
me.
Diego. So I went to San Diego for the first time, like, man, time's flying, like a year and a half ago for work. But whenever I do a work trip, I try to, like, my girlfriend will come out and then we'll have like a long weekend and turn it into like a little
Mm-hmm.
mini vacation.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like it's hard to beat. Like we had a hotel that was like right on the beach. Weather was
Yeah.
perfect. Everybody just seemed so happy. Like
Yeah.
it's
I
like
know it's
yeah,
a different reality. I think all of
it is.
California shares that kind of vibe, right? And again, I don't want to upset some of the audience that lives in LA, for example, but between LA and San Diego, it's to me, it's just night and day in terms of,
Yeah.
what I've experienced. So
Yeah. Santa Monica's pretty cool. It's still really nice.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
It's nice. But yeah, San Diego definitely has a slightly different vibe. A little more laid back than obviously
Hmm.
LA. It's a little crazy.
Yeah.
It's cool, cool. And so you now big life event decided to move to the United States in 2020, right?
Yes, 2020.
Great timing, right?
Yeah.
That must have been what was that like? That must have been a really challenging time to move to another continent.
It was challenging, not for the reasons you'd expect necessarily, because when I took a flight to the United States, it was before the pandemic outburst, right? It was in the very early days of that February of 2020. And, the world was still a regular place. It wasn't ending. But after, I think, a few weeks, by the way, let me pause for a second. I moved to the US mostly because of my wife. We met back in 2016. We were both working at Disney World in Orlando back then, and we kind of like fell in love with each other. And that was like how we came to know and to fall in love with each other. And back then I had, my time was limited. I was with the 1 year visa in the United States, which ended, and then I had to go back to Italy. I had to finish my studies, take my degree in economics. And during those, like 2 or 3 years that I went back to Italy, we kind of like had to date long distance, which is probably one of the hardest things that I have had to do in my life. It's not easy to, be so far away and kind of like having to visit, once, twice a year if you're lucky. But that's the reason why, like the relationship lasts. And in 2020, I kind of decided, okay, this is the big the lifetime decision that I have to make. And like I think I'm ready. And I moved to the US, as you said, 2020, right? So I, like a lot of people, sadly, I lost my job because of the pandemic back in 2020. And I was a server back then, restaurant server. HR or recruiting hadn't even like been in my life at all until then. And when I lost my job, coincidentally, I also lost my eligibility to work in the United States because I wasn't a citizen just yet or a permanent resident. So for 18 months, almost 2 years, I had no job. I was unemployed. I was just unfortunately sitting at home, and my wife was, working night and day for us to be able to afford really like living on one paycheck. So I kind of like started, instead of like doing nothing and sitting around all day, I kind of like started, taking some classes in HR and studying for some certifications. I took some certifications to try and break into the industry. That's I chose HR because I have a degree in economics, and HR is the one, I would say, aspects of the business world where I could most relate to. I love working with people. I'm a people person. So that's what kind of like drew me into it. And at the same time, in those like 18 months of void of not being able to work, my mom back in Italy was battling cancer. So for those almost 2 years, I was unable to travel, unable to really go see her, go see my entire family. And that was one of the most formative period of my life, and it shaped who I am now as a person and as a professional as well. In 2021, I was hired for my first corporate job in the United States. I became a receptionist for a manufacturing company. And from then it was just, like my career just like kicked off, and I was recruited by SafeBreach, and that's where I am today. I've been here for 4.5 years and counting. So that's about, what happened in 2020 and kind of like my big life change in a nutshell. But yeah, that's it.
So when you say it's like one of the most formative experiences of your life, like what do you feel are like the top takeaways from that chapter and that transition and moving to the States, getting married, and everything that transpired with your mom and not being able to visit? Like, how did that change you?
It's really hard to say, to find like one word to say it, but I think it was so deeply challenging on one hand to not have a job and like kind of like feeling for, I don't know, a lot of times like a burden to my wife as well. She was doing all the work and I was unable to. And on the other hand, I was constantly worried, about, will my mom, make it? Will I be able to go see her in time? Like if something really bad had to happen. So when I think about my profession, my career as a recruiter, every day, I always think about who I was, back then, and kind of like how I got into recruiting. And I'm always thankful for the people that took a chance on me, because both in my job at Nylabone, which was the manufacturing company that I was hired as my first corporate job, and at SafeBreach, there were people that kind of like took a chance and a leap of faith in me, because I had a very unconventional background. I wasn't born in this country. I was kind of like a fish in a pond, right? So someone had to take a chance at my unconventional background, unconventional resume, really no resume back then, other than my degree. So I think that has shaped a lot of who I am as a recruiter. I try to give people a chance, right? That's what I centered my job and my career around. I want to look past the document, the PDF, the Word document, and try to understand who that person is, and kind of like uh, what they have been through and what they're going through in order to find a job and kind of like have a good life. So I think that's what every day I think about when I, scroll through resumes or talk to people. I always see the person behind it. And that's not to say that I wouldn't have become this person if it weren't for my kind of like big life change and what happened in 2020. But that definitely helped me become more empathetic and more understanding of people's each unique path, right? I think of, okay, I was born and raised in Italy. I came here in a different country. I was back then, I was barely, speaking fluent English. I was, like, a stranger in this country. And that helps, traveling in general, but especially moving to a different country helps you, kind of like understand and be more understanding of other people. I think about, sometimes in a fictional world, like let's take someone that has never traveled in their life, right? They live in a remote village in any country that you can imagine, and they become a recruiter, right? They will not have the same lens in understanding other people, because not because it's their fault or they're like like voluntarily biased towards it, but because they have never experienced what it means to have a different path. So I think if I can give one piece of advice that has been given a million of times, by other people, is travel as much as you can, meet as many people as you can, because after you do that, you'll become a little bit more selfless and empathetic towards the world and the people that surround you.
It's good advice.
Yeah, thanks.
So let's talk a little bit about where you are today professionally. You've come a long way in a very short amount of time. It's very, very impressive. Starting out as a talent acquisition coordinator toward the end of 2022 to October 2024 being promoted to head of talent. You don't
Yeah.
see that very often. That's really fast. That's one of the fastest progressions I've seen, actually. I'm just, getting into where you are today. What's your obsession for 2026? What are you focused on right now?
So that's a good question. So I want to expand a little more on my career trajectory because you're right, it is an anomaly, right? It is very unusual to have such a quick career progression from being a coordinator to managing an entire talent function globally for a company, right? I think there's a couple of aspects to untangle there. First, because SafeBreach is a smaller reality, it's not like a huge corporation. I was able to make things happen fast and like get my hands dirty with a lot of different things within the recruiting realm, but if even in other aspects of HR, right? Today, I'm the head of talent, meaning that 80% of my job is talent acquisition and recruiting, but I also manage the entire company's employee experience budget and activities and strategy. So I was the fact that I was able to touch so many areas within the human resources, talent operations, people ops world in the company, kind of like helped me progress in my career. And I started as a coordinator. I think only a few months in, the company went through some like structural changes, and back then I was promoted to recruiter, and for a period of time, I was the only talent acquisition person in the company. I had no manager for a few months, and I was kind of like a rogue, kind of like solo talent person in the company. So to this day, I'm still glad that I didn't let fear, take over and run away and look for another opportunity, because that allowed me to be really the head of talent that I am today, right? So I took that leap of faith. I stuck around, and from kind of like being a recruiter, I evolved into what I am today, which is, as you said, the head of talent. So
Awesome.
I think, and not to mention, for the most part of my journey at SafeBridge, I've had great leaders and mentors all around me. One of them being my direct manager, Fallon. She's one of the primary reasons that I thrive and I'm the best version of myself at SafeBridge. And again, sometimes I like to be cheesy, but this is just like the reality of of my job and the fact that I'm able to be my best self, um, because of having a great leader looking out for me. And
Hmm.
I think there's not a lot of people are as lucky to have great managers throughout their career. I think the opposite happens more often than not, unfortunately. And I'm really grateful to to be under such great leadership. So I think the other question that you had was what I'm kind of like obsessed
Yeah, I
in
mean, maybe
2026,
we
right?
jump before we jump into that. I'm just curious, like from your perspective, what makes a great manager or leader? Like, what's the most important thing there?
I think there's a couple things, right? There's, on one hand, always having your back no matter what. I think that the saying that says compliment in public and reprimand in private, that's a mantra that I go by. And I think always having your back in front of the people at the company and in front of leaders, that's one thing. But at the same time, not becoming an aggressive micromanager, right? Still giving you the space to make your own decision, to be autonomous in your role. And I think we kind of like find the perfect synergy, the perfect balance between feeling like I'm empowered enough to make my own decisions, to kind of like shape my own role and my own career path. And at the same time, when something happens or when times get challenging, I have her back and I feel like her support and her mentorship. So I think that's the most important balance, which is incredibly hard to find in any corporate job, really. And I never take that for granted.
I love it. Yeah, thanks. I just want to slow down on that before we move on. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about your obsession for 2026. Like, what are you really laser focused on right now?
So I think if I scroll through my career SafeBreach, I think there was some pivotal moments where the job of being a recruiter stopped being coordination and it started being more judgment focused, right? So every TA function has an unconscious bias to keep going, more loops, more candidates, more steps in the process. I think the takeaway from many years in this career is that the highest leverage thing that a TA leader does is sometimes to stop the process, is to sometimes make that judgment call. And one of the things that shaped that the recruiter that I am today and the head of talent that I am today was one time I was recruiting for a leader in our accounting division, and the final candidate had gone through, I think, 8 rounds of interviews, right? Something like that. And I had to say something at that point because the CFO, which was recruiting for their role and being the hiring manager, wanted the candidate to speak to more people, more than
Jeez.
8 people. So I was like, we need to we're going to lose, our top candidates if we continue this route. Like how
Yeah.
many more judgments you need for this person. And that was kind of like the call that I had. That was the first time, by the way, that I had to stand up in front of a C-level executive. And that was the moment, the pivotal moment when I realized that my job wasn't just being a doer, but also, having those judgment calls and, stand up for myself and stand up for the candidates that I was recruiting. So that was a pivotal moment that I always like to reflect to. I think I'm obsessed with what a recruiter and a recruiter job will become when AI will do 80% of the sourcing, right? So it's easy to say that I'm obsessed with AI and what the future holds for us, but that's everybody is obsessed with AI. So that's not probably what you like to hear. I think the
Oh,
interesting question is when the sourcing layer and the operational layer is automated, what does the human still do, right? So I think what I answer myself, and I hope that's the real answer, is you have to become a closer, a translator, a system designer more than just a doer and someone that just is an operator, right? So you're literally living this, like I'm literally living this right now. All of us are. I can give you an example. The coordinator in my team, Nama, she started exploring autonomous agents that are building a sourcing function right now.
man.
And, when she presented that idea to me, I was like, geez, we better not show this to anybody or we'll both get fired, right? So but that's what a bad leader would do, right? So back to examples of great leadership. Instead, what I did with that is I sent a nomination for a flagship recruiting conference for us to be speakers and present this original research that we did with the autonomous sourcing agent. And I can't tell you 100% in full confidence, but we are probably going to be selected and speak, on a global recruiting stage about this tool. So,
That's awesome, man. By the way, if that happens, you gotta send me let me know where it is. I'll try to make it. If I can't make it, I'll at least promote if you share the link or something like that.
of course, and it's going to be in San Diego, so you
Oh, okay, I'm
you don't
going.
want to miss that.
Dude, okay, so let me know for real. I'm gonna try to make it. No, but that'd be cool. I mean, we already met in New York. We should, we gotta, it'd be cool to meet up in San Diego for sure.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun. Are you guys using like so what are you using to build the agents? Is it like what are you building on top of?
So there's a few layers, but this came after months of experimenting on a variety of AI tools, right? I started with ChatGPT. That's what probably everybody started with. And then with the company, we got a corporate Gemini license. So I experimented with Gemini, which, by the way, it's very underrated. There's a lot of negativity that goes around it, but it actually gives pretty decent results. But what we eventually landed on is using Claude, right? Claude has a desktop version, which is called Claude Co-work. And that's what enables you to really build something that runs on itself, autonomous. And they have a couple ways by means of which you can automate things. One being their connectors, what's called like an MCP, which they allow you to connect with any different tools that you have, your ATS, your LinkedIn Recruiter, and such. But for any other app that doesn't have a connector, what they do is that they build a simple Chrome extension that can basically debug your screen and like kind of like use your computer as if it was you. So now this has a lot of like privacy and legal implications, and I want to reiterate that we covered all of that with our legal team. We're not infringing any law, but at the same time, we're fortunate enough to be able to experiment with this, because I talked to some of my peers who are working at bigger companies, like even not as big as Microsoft, but even like as like bigger companies and SafeBreach. They're not allowed to use such tools because of how layered their data protection and privacy policies are. So I told my team, let's make sure that we take this time to experiment and learn as much
Yeah,
as possible, because not a lot of people are as fortunate as we are.
for sure. And one way, like, so one of the companies I own is June. It's called
Mm-hmm.
June, not the month. It's called June.
Yeah.
And which is an awesome name, except when you're in June, which is coming up. So I'm like, I know for the next month everybody's gonna be confused, but
Yeah.
I love the name. But anyways, it's an AI interviewer.
Right.
And so for instance, I actually haven't publicly announced this. This is the first time I'll say it actually is on the show. We just signed TaskRabbit up, which is really exciting. And we've
Mm-hmm.
gotten verbal approval from like a lot of other great growth stage companies. One that's not like a little lesser known is called Augury, but they probably have $1 billion valuation based in New York and
Mm-hmm.
Tel Aviv. So like a lot of cool companies. And one thing from a data privacy and compliance thing that makes it a little easier is we're only doing AI interviews for US based candidates. So
Okay.
like even for international firms, like as we sign like some of these bigger companies like TaskRabbit, there's a desire for us to go international, but we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, well, let's just focus on the US market for now because it's a lot, we consider a lot riskier than like doing this in Europe, right? Or like understanding compliance and data privacy and all these other areas, right? So it just makes it a
Yeah.
lot easier, like for us to collaborate with our attorneys and with TaskRabbit's external counsel and to be like, hey, like, what do we need to, like, are we missing anything? Like, let's cover all of our bases.
Yeah.
Which can be a workaround for larger, just like if I'm just saying for like head of TAs tuning in that you're like a larger org, like specifically ask legal and procurement, like if you can trial these products or even build your own agent specifically for markets within the US.
Yeah. That's
And-
good advice, because once you start getting in the weeds of GDPR in Europe,
oh God, yeah.
that's the end of it.
Dude, when GDPR first came out, this is when I still had the subsidiary in Romania. Good Lord, we had to become compliant. We were like a small business and we had to do like a ton of paperwork, man. Like an
I
absolute
bet.
ton. Yeah, it was crazy. So yeah, it's a lot complicated. And like, regardless of like whether or not those are good rules to have, it's like the US market is like the best place to experiment this type of new tech, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's really
but
cool.
yeah, to go back to your question, so that's one thing that I'm excited and obsessed about, to figure out what us recruiters and talent leaders will become once the rest will be automated, right? Another thing is, I wonder whether really anybody in our profession can build a TA function that will survive us, that will go beyond us as like, individuals and last even after we left the company, right? So what I've been experimenting and focusing a lot about here at SafeBreach specifically is, how do I build a knowledge base and a set of procedures and processes that can be used, even after I take on my next chapter of, hopefully after like many years from now, but like, anything can happen. So I want to make sure that all the knowledge and the experience and the skills that I built for myself don't get lost when I leave, right? So We use a variety of tools. For example, we found a lot of success in using Confluence from Jira as like one source of truth for the company. But again, with AI being more and more powerful, there's also another module you can use in Claude that actually lets you build custom skills. So I think that's going to be the new era of, like a shared knowledge base. Um, just to give you like a brief example, I'm building a skill of focus on talent acquisition, right? Specifically, and that includes basically all of the sourcing, JD creation, scorecards, interview prep that I do on a day to day, and it's built into a skill that my coordinator or my VP of HR or even anybody outside of our team can use if plugged into Claude, into an AI tool. And I think that will be the future of making sure that the knowledge and really the outcome and the output that you build throughout the years outlasts you.
Yeah.
Another thing is being a leader, and I've only started being a people leader for less than a year now, but I'm already obsessed with mentoring, for right, specifically with creating the conditions for the people that are mentoring to outpace me, and some of it is already happening, by the way. The example that I gave you before, Nama, the coordinator in my team, building a sourcing automation agent, that's
Hmm.
something that I even had figured out yet. So which is, I think, one of the most perfect examples of great leadership. Not to say that I'm a great leader or I'm a perfect leader just yet. I'm very early in my journey, but
But you know
if
what's important to you. Like, you know
right,
how, yeah.
if someone junior in your team comes to you with something that advanced that you didn't ask her to do, that probably means that you're doing something right. And I think that also allows you to put your ego aside and think of the team as the most important thing rather than your own
Yeah.
ego. So that's what I've been heavily focused on. And one final thing is, and this is specifically to cybersecurity, right? And this will probably be interesting, and I would love to hear if anybody else in the cybersecurity industry of my fellow cyber recruiters has any thoughts on this. But I don't think cyber has figured out early career just yet, like how to get people to start a career in cyber and give people a chance when they're early in their career. How do they break into cybersecurity? There's very high barriers to entry to the cyberspace because of its nature, right? It's very technical, and you do need some foundational knowledge to get into it. But maybe this is where campus recruiting might come into play, right? And that's something that I've been picking the brains of my leaders about at SafeBreach, right? How maybe do we break into that and try to bring some early career people into the company? And I think that will probably come in handy, especially in periods where there's like talent shortage and the war for talent is ruthless than ever. Maybe betting on some of these, incredibly, skillful and people with great potential that will probably not solve the war for talent, but definitely put a big patch on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, too, with AI, right? Like, in certain ways it raises the bar, but in certain ways it can lower the barrier to entry. Like, it kind of
Mm.
does both depending on the situation. But it enables people that are adaptable and sharp to move through the ranks faster and acquire knowledge that they need to be successful in roles, right? And it also gives an opportunity for, I think, employers to further focus on behavioral fits. Um, and helping people focus opposed to administrative tasks to really develop on honing in on the core skill set,
Yeah,
hopefully
and
accelerating faster, right?
yeah, and not just on that, but even on even like more technical aspects of the job, like even coding, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of AI tools that can do coding for you now, and that raises the questions to what will happen to engineers, to developers, but What we're also doing when it comes to developers in SafeBreach, and we've been trying to experiment with kind of like lowering the bar, and not in terms of talent or quality, but maybe in terms of like hard requirements, right? If before we when we hire for our engineering team, we thought, okay, this person needs to be able to produce clean code in Python or C. Now we're able to maybe hire someone more junior, but that can, have can be adaptable and can use AI tools to produce the same kind of output. So that's the possibilities are endless, and yeah, so that's about it.
I love it. I love it, man. That's it's really good stuff here. And as we're kind of entering the final segment of our conversation, I would love to I love to be a little bit forward focused. And we start off the conversation talking it's more personally focused, then we dive into career, and then I like to end with sort of a blend of the two, right? I suppose, and we can start professionally, we can start personally, it could be maybe it's like one and the same to some extent, but when you think about the person you're becoming, the professional you're becoming, like talk to me about like what the next several years like you're going to be focused on and what maybe, as I like to say, like what the next best version of yourself looks like.
Good question. So you kind of like give me an option between personal and professional. I'll do both, right?
Yeah, it's wherever
So
your head goes, right? Yeah.
yeah. So I think this touches on both the personal and professional aspects of my life. Is I want to take every good thing that I've learned from good leadership and apply it to me as a human being and as a people leader, right? I've had the opportunity throughout my career to have terrible managers and to have incredibly amazing managers. And I think it's important to experience both, right? I think a lot of the good comes from failures and like learning lessons, but having great mentors and managers in your life is definitely a game changer. So what I want to do is you know, hopefully I'll have the chance to continue pursuing a career in talent acquisition and become a more senior leader and having an entire team under my umbrella, right? That I can mentor and train and kind of like let them become and give them a chance, like somebody gave a chance to me when I was junior in my career. So that's one thing. The other thing is it's more professional. Is It has a couple aspects. One is I kind of like want to figure out whether recruiting is still a service desk or is if it's a strategic discipline in the business, right? So I've been fortunate enough to be in a company where HR and recruiting are seen as business partners and strategic advisors. But I know that there are companies out there and teams out there where they this experience does not translate in the same way. There are some recruiters and teams that are still seen as transactional, and I think what I would love to see in the future in recruiting and in HR is, solidifying our profession as that strategic business leaders, kind of like status,
Mm.
like any other team in an organization.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that. Well, look, is there anything else you want to add on that front? It looked like I didn't want to cut you off. It looked like you were about to say
No, no,
something.
that's the last thing I wanted to mention is more, I would say, personal and um we always joke, my wife and I always joke about, the advancements in corporate, the corporate world and AI. It's just going so fast that sometimes, we realize that human brains were really not designed to handle this much at once. So sometimes we just
Yeah.
dream and wonder, like, what if we just sold fruit on the beach and just, abandoned all this and became farmers or anything, being more in touch with nature than something like that. So that's what I want to close with.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's important to find balance, particularly when you're in tech, right?
Yeah,
Got to get outside a little bit.
yeah, for sure.
For sure, man. Well, hey, This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you coming on the show today and just having this like very genuine, down to earth conversation together. And it's been awesome getting to know you and talking shop as well. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, James. It's been amazing. This is the first podcast that I've been invited to, and it's been a great ride, right? Since the first time we met in New York and kind of like, talked through it. Also, I didn't know I had it in me to go as deep into my, life experiences and talk at length about it. So I'm impressed that I was able to do it, and I hope that other people will find my life story interesting in
Oh
some way
yeah.
or another. So
For sure. It's definitely very interesting. It's always nice to get to know people. It's like we're in this, I think we were talking about before we hit record. It's like we're in this people business, and I think it's important to not forget that, to
yeah,
not just
and
see people through like Zoom or through a title or their employer, but like try to understand
yeah,
and get to know the whole person. Right.
yeah. I think one liner that I can give to close this out is give people a chance. That's all they need.
I love it.